Welcome everyone. It's been about 6 years since I did my budget turbo E28 build overview, and a lot has changed and some things haven't changed, so I figured I'd go over the whole build again and just kind of hopefully inspire other people to do the same. This is originally started as a Sloppy Mechanics build. So if you follow Sloppy Mechanics, Matt Happel's channel, many years ago I was inspired by him. I'm not in the Turbo LS world, but I applied everything from his channel about Turbo LSs to a classic BMW, and it worked. So trying to do something with very little money that is fun and you can just kind of cruise and eat ice cream and do burnouts is basically kind of how his channel is, just something that's fun. You don't have to have $1 million into a car to enjoy it and get the boosty noises that everyone loves. So let's go over it, and we'll just start from the top. For those who aren't familiar with this is a completely stock 3.4 liter US spec M30. All it has is head studs. I just took out each head bolt, the factory ones, individually, put a head stud in, an ARP head stud, and tightened them down in sequence. And last year on the dyno, with the Savage Fabrication whole set turbo, this thing made 560 wheel horsepower and 645 pound-feet of torque. Bone stock. So these old motors are stout. They're very tanky. The connecting rods are overly built. A lot of it, anything on here is overly built. And that was all done with a very simple setup. In fact, that was on the old turbo manifold and a different version of the Savage Fabrication turbo. Currently, if we go to the turbo, this is a whole set HE351, and it has a 67 millimeter turbine from Savage Fabrication and a 60 millimeter compressor. When it made 560 wheel, it was actually on an HE341, so it had the same hot side. It was modified with a 67 millimeter hot side, but it had a 54 millimeter compressor, so it was the smaller 03 to 04 and a half, I think, turbo off of Dodge Cummins. The 9 centimeter housing on these, if you're familiar, is kind of magical. Has really good response and works really well with this size engine. I have quite a bit of data on my channel. You can check out some of my other videos. I freely give all the data logs and everything that I did when I did those dyno polls. You can go check out if you like, if you want to know more about this. I have the same Turbo Smart CompGate 40 wastegate that is welded to the housing. I did all the fabrication on this car myself. It's a turbine research build, and just welded it to the housing because these typically come internally gated. I just welded off that internal gate and put the wastegate on the turbine housing. For ease of getting to it, I like having the wastegate up top, but also it gives like really good wastegate priority because directly in line with the foot of the turbo, it goes directly into the wastegate and out. So you have really good boost control with this. It is a 3-inch exhaust, and this is all polished stainless steel that I bought from Summit Racing. And I think I got, some of these other bellows parts from Ace Race Parts and Amazon, things like that. I have a AEM UEGO wideband. I've had this one forever, and it has held up, but many of my friends have the same wideband, and we've had nothing but problems with them. So I'm not really sure if the AEM ones are the way to go these days, but this it's held up. Just got a K&N air filter, 4-inch to 3-inch elbow. Trying to give as much info because a lot of people, they like to know like the nitty gritties. So if you're bored by it, you can skip through, but it's 2.5-inch charge pipe. I just made this custom pied piece. You don't actually need this. It was just, I was learning how to do some aluminum pie cuts and made that. It goes from 2.75 on the outlet, 2.75 inches to 2.5. So you have to get a silicone coupler that does that. And then it goes into this intercooler. I believe it is 18 tall by 21 wide and 3-inch core, and it's 2.5 inch inlet and outlet. That just goes over behind the headlight here into a couple really simple elbows. Plan on redoing this in the future to make it a little more tidy, but it's just a couple long elbows, goes up into the throttle body here. Now on M30s, unless you have a newer one that's an automatic off an E34, you won't have a potentiometer style throttle position sensor like this. So that's where I got this. This is an E34 automatic M30 potentiometer style. It fits in the exact same spot because it's still meant for an M30, but it's yeah, it's just really good. These actually have quite a bit of resolution compared to like an M50 throttle body adapter. If you do need an M50 throttle body adapter for these, I do make one on my channel. I designed one, and it's 3D printable. You can make it out of other materials as well, but this will do an M50 one, M50 TPS, and this is free. Go check out my Thingiverse. I'll put the link in the description. You can get this if you need it. If you're converting over to a standalone ECU, you're going to need a potentiometer style throttle position sensor for that. And then everything else is kind of standard stuff you'd put on an aftermarket ECU that you need. This is a GM water temp sensor. You actually don't need this. You can just use the E30 style one, like the factory one that would fit in here. At the time, I just put this in there because it was the most known way. When I did it, it was like one of the very first Megasport cars I did. I just wanted to go an easy route where you just have a drop down for the sensors, and I just drilled and tapped this down here and put it in. But I would definitely just recommend using the E30, like newer style, the 2-wire coolant temp sensor, and you'll be just fine. There's the classic General Motors. It's a 3/8 NPT air temp sensor, just the open element one. Just threaded it into the aluminum there. And let's see what else. It's using a stock fuel pressure regulator. We're just gonna go as I like see stuff. Stock fuel pressure regulator works great. You know, like you've seen, I made over 600 crank horsepower on this thing, and when I've data logged the fuel pressure, it does go 1-to-1 with boost. So as long as you have this referenced to the manifold, that works. It has a flex fuel sensor down here. Still need to tidy it up, but yep, flex fuel sensor. I made a catch can that just comes across from the top here, goes over, mounts in some bolts here that I made here. Let's see what else. I have a bunch of videos on a few things like this you can check out on my channel, but let's see. This is a 40 amp relay with a 20 amp fuse, 10 gauge Tevzo wire going all the way back for the fuel pump. So on this car, part of the reason I'm able to reliably make a lot of power is because I have a Walbro 450 fuel pump in tank, and I have 10 gauge wire all the way to the pump. So you don't mess around when you put in high performance pumps. Some of these pumps like this one pull like 17 to 20 amps when they're fully loaded, and they need good wire all the way to the back, thick stuff. You get voltage drop at certain distances with every wire, so make sure you put in good wiring. This is a huge part of being reliable, is having a good fuel system. I'm still on the same stock 5/16 fuel lines. I just replaced them with Continental ContiTech InstaGrip. So this is actually push lock hose from like hydraulic stores. It works really well, holds up. This stuff's been on here for like 5 years, and it holds up to gasoline just fine. Not every push lock does, but this one does a really good job. And I think on this side of the engine, everything else is just stock radiator and It's on a hydro boost, like the factory hydro boost. I've cut out and removed quite a bit of the original harness and wiring and stuff like that. Still need to tidy it up, but yeah, getting new grounds and battery posts and redoing the positive wires, that helps quite a bit with the reliability of the electrical system on the car. Just letting you guys know. Oh yeah, I got a Mac boost solenoid. Sorry we're jumping around. It's just as I see things, we'll go over them. Mac boost solenoid just goes to the top of the gate. Currently I can run, I think this is gated at like 14 pounds on spring, and then I can go up, I've been going up to like 24 pounds was what I made the most power on. Yeah, once again, push lock hose for my oil line for the turbo. I just went across here and just elbowed in back there. Typically you have the oil light switch right here. I just took the oil light switch out, and that's where I feed the turbo. I have Siemens Deca 80-pound injectors. You can see the blue caps on them down there. They're just EV1 style plugs. Yeah, 80-pound injectors, stock fuel rail, and stock fuel pressure regulator. Up to 500 horsepower, all the stock stuff works just fine. These are LS coils off of LS trucks, the D585s. The only problem with these is if you overdwell them, they can fire off randomly, but I just keep the dwell below 3.5 milliseconds, and I've never had a problem. This car, I think, will eventually get a full rewire. All the wiring I have tidied up, but it's original from the very first time I ever did a Megasquirt install over 6 years ago. So it might look bad, but it is all correctly connected, and it's really not that bad. So sorry, but not sorry if you're worried about the wiring. I have done many new and better things since. The crank position sensor, I have another video on my channel about, is a Hall effect sensor from DIY Auto Tune. Has an adapter that I made that's on my Thingiverse. You can go print one out yourself or cut it out on Send Cut Send. Let me get my roller and we'll go under the car. So, all right. Underneath, my oil drain is just right here at the top of the pan. Although I don't think this is actually the most ideal location for it. The most ideal location is actually in the boss back here. Sorry, I've got my hand right here, but there's a boss right here that is untapped from the factory on M30s that's originally for the 745i turbo, and that's the best place to put your oil drain. Right here, if you are up to the top on your oil level with your dipstick, if you were to take this off right now, it actually pour oil out, and that inhibits draining from the turbo. Once the engine's running, it's not as bad because it's pumping oil up through the engine and the turbo, and so the oil level comes down a bit, but it's not ideal. I wouldn't actually suggest it if you're doing a fresh build. Just go ahead and put on thread that bung back there. I made front motor mounts myself. These I just lathed out of ultra high molecular weight plastic, aka Delrin, and they're not too bad as far as noise. I have just stock rubber mounts in the back, and between the rubber mounts on the transmission and the Delrin mounts up front, it's actually really not that bad. I used some motorsport wire from ProWire USA to make a really nice grounding strap. In all the old car junk that I've ever worked on, grounding and electrical is one of the most important things that I've ever discovered. Makes a big difference. I'm using the Kangaroo's turbo manifold from E28 Goodies. Absolutely awesome. I haven't discovered any problems with these, and they fit just like a glove, like slides on, slides off. No fitment issues whatsoever. And it sounds incredible. It completely changed the sound of the engine, and the response from my old turbo setup is significantly increased. Like, this thing is snappy. You might be wondering what this is. This is my back pressure sensor. So I just, where the wastegate block off plate is on the Kangaroo's manifold. I just drilled and tapped and put in a piece of 1/4-inch OD copper line that goes up to a pressure sensor so I can check the back pressure on this. Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else. I ran hard line from the boost reference on the front of the turbo over to the wastegate. I've been trying to move over to hard lines to avoid any problems and having issues with losing soft lines to heat. There's the downpipe that I made myself, 3-inch all the way down, and goes over to a loud valve and then splits off to the exhaust at the back with a catalytic converter. I'll show that here in just a minute. There's the other Delrin motor mount. Everything else is the same. I do have E34. Wow, it's kind of tight under here. Sorry, guys. I do have E34 lower control arms, the aluminum ones. It's just an easy upgrade to do. That's a drop-in for E28s. I desperately need new front shocks. However, I have Eibach lowering springs. I think they are 2 1/4-inch lowering springs. They're from a long time ago. They don't make them anymore, actually, but rides pretty well. Not too bad. Stainless steel brake lines. This car, honestly, was essentially destined for the junkyard when I got it, and it was owned by a friend of mine who passed away, and the only reason it hasn't gone to the junkyard is because it has a little bit of value, sentimental value, from being in my friend group and someone who is dear to me that passed away. So anything you see that looks overly rusty or broken, it was kind of destined to be in the junkyard. But I did a long time ago the pin upgrade where you can mount the steering box on a solid pin. I forget the guy on my E28 that sells those, but it's a really nice upgrade. Just stiffens up the steering box. Before, there's just a little piece that tears there that's a sheet metal piece, and it is noticeable when you replace that. Your steering box starts to significantly get stiffer. Let's go over here and kind of show you the exhaust setup. So 3-inch downpipe, I put a V-band right there, and then it goes into a Y and goes into a loud valve. So it has a atmospheric loud valve dump right here, and then after that it branches off, goes into a Flowmaster catalytic converter, and then a Summit Racing muffler, and then it goes back to a Vibrant 3-inch resonator at the very back of the car. It's actually quite quiet. It's good, and the catalytic converter keeps the pump gas smell out. It's actually really nice to not have this thing stink. I've had uncatalyzed cars for long enough and old junk that smells, and I'm just I guess I'm getting old and don't care for it anymore. So just threw on a cat, and it's really made the car a lot more drivable. This has a Getrag 265/6, I believe. It is only a couple year transmissions, like the early 80s or mid 80s to early 80s had this 5-speed. It separates at the bell housing with bolts instead of integrated bell housing. I plan hopefully in the future to make an adapter to put in a Tremec transmission like a TKX, but for now we're just running this thing. It has a Sachs 765 pressure plate on the clutch with a, it's a stock E34 M5 disc. So I'm just running an organic non-sintered disc, and it has held up to 645 pound-feet of torque. I have a lot of mechanical sympathy on this clutch, so I think that's why it's held up so well, but most people say it doesn't hold up to that torque level. But I rarely ever clutch kick it or beat on it because I don't want it to die, and so that might be why it has held up so well. So interior basically stock. Just kind of kept it with the comfort seats. This thing is a breeze to cruise in. I have a Condor Speed Bat. It's either Condor or Garagistic, I forget, but it's a Delrin Bat shift knob. I hard mounted the shifter, so this thing is really nice and sturdy. Between the Delrin front motor mounts, brand new rear transmission mounts, and the solid mount underneath, this thing shifts so crispy. It feels a lot more similar to a modern car. And then I just made a little laser cut acrylic bracket for my wideband that sits in where your one of your fan outlets is. And yeah, really basic. The chassis has 440,000 miles on it. And yeah, the Mega Squirt lives in here. I actually have it locked currently, but in my other video you can see it's the same exact setup. I have a Micro Squirt just sitting there. Yeah, the only other thing is I painted the car myself last year. I have some videos on that, and I'll be making more videos. I paint matched the mirrors, which is a nice touch on E28s because they never came with that. Only E30s did. And man, running out of breath here. Hopefully this helps somebody and inspires you. When I first built this car, I was working part-time, going to university, and built it on a shoestring budget. I think I probably turboed the entire car and did Mega Squirt for like $3,000. And even though it was kind of janky, it still worked really well, and it was fun for a very long time. And now I'm just doing another version on it, kind of reviving it, put some new hard parts in it. Savage Fabrication has helped out with building an awesome turbo, and Kangaroo's team, E28 Goodies, helped out getting the turbo manifolds. They make an awesome product. You guys should absolutely go check them out. And yeah, look forward to continuing to build this. I'll make another video maybe here in a couple years, and we'll see how far this thing has come. So hopefully this is helpful to you guys and inspires you to build something cool. Thanks.